I declare open this hearing of the Public Accounts and Estimates Committee. I ask that mobile telephones please be turned to silent. I begin by acknowledging the traditional Aboriginal owners of the land on which we are meeting, the lands of the Wurundjeri people. We pay our respects to them, their elders past, present and emerging, as well as elders from other communities who may be here with us today. On behalf of the Parliament, the committee is conducting this inquiry into the 2025-26 budget estimates. The committee's aim is to scrutinise public administration and finance to improve outcomes for the Victorian community.
Minister, can you confirm, is there an expected 40% reduction in staff and loss of 3 commissioners from the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission?
Obviously, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission is an important entity and they have a key focus on the governance and the performance of the system, and they also have a very important function around complaints handling. In terms of the focus for the 25-26 budget, the very strong focus for the mental health portfolio in this financial year is the frontline services that Victorians rely on, including some of those community programs and acute services that we've been talking about this morning. We want to make sure that we're focused on priority groups, including those most vulnerable to suicide, and support for children and young people and people with acute mental health supports. So there have been, as a result of that focus, we have had to make responsible decisions around the scale and scope of our mental health governance and oversight bodies, and that includes the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission. So the funding for the Commission has been adjusted to reflect that renewed focus, but they still have very important safeguarding responsibilities and work to do, and we will be working closely with the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission, particularly, I must say, on making sure that the complaints function that the Commission has is robust and that consumers are getting the support and the timely feedback that they need when they are calling on the assistance of the Commission when it comes to complaints about any part of the system. Now, the government introduced explicit changes to the Mental Health and Wellbeing Act to give the Commission these expanded powers, and it will...
I'd like to ask you, sorry to interrupt, I'd like to ask you about that adjustment though that you mentioned. So that 40% reduction in staff and those 3 commissioner roles going, is that expected as part of that adjustment?
Well, we're in the process of working closely with the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission. My department's been engaging directly with the commissioners and the CEO of the Commission about what the funding changes will mean for their operation. That's conversations that are going to be continuing for a number of weeks to come, but it won't change the reduced scrutiny and the powers that the Commission have.
Right.
But, I'm not shying away from the fact that there is a very strong focus in this budget on frontline services for Victorians right across the mental health and wellbeing system. So we have, as a result of that focus, needed to pay close attention to where our investments are and what our governance arrangements are right across the system. Now, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission play a critical role, and that will continue, but there will be ongoing conversations with the Commission about what their priorities are.
Okay.
And it's probably important for you to note that each year I do work with the Commission around indicating what my priorities are for their work, and that process will occur again after this particular budget outcome.
Okay. Yeah, I have a follow-up just on that point. Part of the functions have been oversight of Royal Commission recommendations. Are you removing the ability for that independent authority to oversee those functions?
No, the funding changes don't mean any reduction in scrutiny. There's important changes that have already indicated our government made. We changed the Act to ensure that the Commission had that role. That's not changing, and they will still have an important role of oversight of the reform delivery by government, and they will critique the government, as they regularly do, against our efforts to implement the Royal Commission recommendations. So that's not changing.
Okay. Minister, in my electorate, I meet regularly with older community members of multicultural backgrounds, particularly of Chinese diaspora communities. They talk to me about the barriers that they experience, not only in being older people in the community, but the compounding effects they experience of language barriers and need for targeted support so that they can fully engage with programs and services in the area. Minister, are there any dedicated services in this budget to support older folk who are culturally and linguistically diverse?
Thank you. It's an excellent question, and it's something that we have to be particularly mindful of as we continue to plan what the ever-increasing needs will be for an ageing population. And because Victoria is such a diverse community, I think we have half the population either born overseas or had a parent born overseas. So it's going to be something that we need to constantly be vigilant around. I know that a lot of our PS RACs do already do a power of work in making sure that they are culturally safe and that they're taking into consideration the diverse nature of the community. So that goes to things like having bilingual workforces, thinking carefully about how people from different backgrounds are able to practice their culture and traditions, and even simple things like the food that's served. I know this is something that our public sector residential aged care services already take a lot of time to think about and deliver. So we're in the process at the moment of assessing some expressions of interest around not-for-profit aged care providers that might be in a position to deliver to particular parts of our diverse community aged care facilities. So the department's currently working through those processes and that evaluation and the expressions of interest, and the department will be making some recommendations.
Can I ask, Minister, will any of the funding for the Victorian African Communities Plan be distributed to AfriCause in order to co-design a cross-cultural program to improve relationships with Footscray Police Force?
Thank you for that question. Obviously we have significant investment and work we do with those in Victoria of African heritage, and one of the key initiatives is the Victorian African Community Action Plan, and I'm happy to take you to those details. In terms of the recent events in Footscray, I know it's been incredibly upsetting for many in the community, and particularly for the loved ones of Mr. Ahmed, and he was a Somalian man living with significant issues. That is a matter that's being investigated at a number of levels, so I'm not going to go to the specifics of that incident, but I do want to express my deep condolences to the whole community because I know that it's really impacted them. I have had the opportunity to meet with a number of community leaders from the Victorian Somalian community to hear directly from them about what supports the government can provide to make sure, particularly that people who are experiencing homelessness or mental health issues or AOD challenges, that we have got the tailored supports that we need, which are culturally appropriate and safe. So I've had that initial meeting with a number of community leaders from the Somalian Victorian community. I know also that the Victorian Multicultural Commission have also been working closely with community leaders in Footscray following those events. There are a large number of services already in operation in the Footscray area through a range of different community organisations. We've got a number of important public mental health services as well. But I think that what I'm keen to ensure is that whatever additional supports we might look to provide, that they are responding directly to what the community leaders are telling us as government they need.
Thank you.
And they know their communities best.
Yeah.
And so I think that I'm very committed to listening carefully to what they're asking for and seeing how we can ensure that our services are responding directly to those concerns.
Can I ask, is any of that money for the Creative Enterprises program? And just to follow on, do you expect the total amount available for Creative Enterprises program to be the same as it was over the previous 4-year cycles?
Yeah, so without finding a budget paper reference, I can indicate that the Creative Enterprises, the funding for Creative Enterprises predominantly comes through base appropriation. We're currently working through the process for Creative Enterprises, which will run through the end of this year, where we will make determinations. So that's, I suppose, yet to come in terms of a process where organisations apply for multi-year funding.
Okay. Just trying to get expectations from you, though, Minister. So for that program, for organisations that are successful, should they expect that the funding they receive would be an increase on what they've received previously?
I don't want to get locked into organisations assuming they'll get more or less funding. We're yet to determine the process for that rollout of Creative Enterprises later in the year.
Okay.
Obviously, lots of organisations do great work, and I hope that they continue to be funded, but we just need to see exactly how many organisations apply, and they're judged on their merits.
Just looking on, I'm going to go through a few different initiatives, and just if you can give me a sense of whether they're lapsing or if they're still receiving funding in this budget, that would be great. The Victorian Music Development Office and Music Market, are they continuing under this budget?
That will continue to be funded.
How about the Music Works program?
We've allocated significant funds to a range of music programs. So the new 10,000 gigs live music fund, which you'd be aware of, which I think was a $7.5 million allocation over 4 years. We've funded 144 gigs there. There's the Live Music Festivals Fund. We've stood up a Music Industry Advisory Council and are rolling out $2 million for song making in schools. So there's a whole range of music initiatives, and we need to consider Music Works in the totality of that package.
Music Works specifically, does that continue over the estimates, or is that yet to be determined?
Yet to be determined.
Could I get a sense as to why?
As I said, it's around the large investment we're making in a range of music programs, and us making decisions around the best way to support music, particularly contemporary and live music. We've seen significant investment rolling out, and we'll continue to roll out into live music performances, so giving venues support to host gigs, but also therefore creating opportunities for musicians and performers to create audience and to get experience performing in a live sense.
The output initiatives in relation to funding the economic growth statement. In the statement, a key aim is to make Victoria the natural choice for defence-related contracts, and a part of this funding is for a dedicated specialist team to maintain consistent relationships with major defence primes and supply chain providers. Can you provide the committee with a list of the major defence primes that are being talked about here, that we're maintaining relationships with?
So I think the primes that you're referring to would broadly be defined in the Victorian Defence Vision Statement. It's a public document, and if there are others, I don't think there'd be too many that aren't mentioned in the Victorian Defence Vision Statement.
Non-government electorate officers often find that the 2.5 FTE staffing entitlement is frankly not enough to properly scrutinise bills, to serve constituents and to communicate broadly in our electorates. So the result of this is that many of us are then hiring staff on a casual hourly wage to supplement the 2.5 FTE. In practice, these staff are often not casual at all. They're integral parts of our team who may go on to stay for years at a time. However, because of the staffing entitlements of the Parliament, we're told there's no way to convert these staff to permanent employment if the 2.5 FTE has already been allocated. So can I just query, are we working in an exception to national employment standards that allows our casual DPS staff, including electorate officers, to continue working these regular casual hours for more than 6 months without being offered permanent work?
Just in the way that you've asked the question, I can see that you understand the complexity of what's trying to be managed. The funding is available for 2.5 electorate officers. There is no funding that's provided to the employer for the purposes of employing any further electorate officers. So those 2.5 FTE, I should say, rather than 2.5 FTE, which sometimes can be 4 people, sometimes can be 3 people, is where there is a permanent ongoing employment or fixed term, really depends on what the member is looking for in relation to those 2.5. The employer, being jointly the presiding officers, have no funds to employ any further electorate officers. That decision to expend funds or provide funds for the purpose of employment belongs to the member, because that funds come out of their electorate office and communications budget. So when it comes to that compliance question you asked, as I understand it, the compliance to offer the ongoing or more secure employment, to use more sort of industrial language, needs to be linked to there being employer having ongoing need for and funding for those roles, which we don't have past 2.5.
I declare this hearing adjourned.